everybody? Evolutionary Network podcast coming your way. This is episode 380. Stevesmi here, and Rick. What's up, buddy?
Hey, what's up, Steve? What's up, guys? How's everybody doing out there?
Good. So, guys, our even episodes, compound episodes. This time we're going to do one on TB500, which is a peptide, and it's a very interesting one. And I think that it's one of the more popular ones, especially for healing. So we're going to kind of get into it. It's a synthetic form of thymosin beta 4, and it's specifically designed in our industry, in the fitness industry, to help us with these nagging injuries that we get over time and to help us recover quicker. And as someone who's used it, I can say that it does help with that. So, before we get too much into it, though, I want to bring in Rick because he's our historian here, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the history behind that TB500. So go ahead, Rick. Tell us, everybody.
So TB500 is the synthetic version of thymosin beta 4, which is a peptide that's naturally produced by your body in the thymus gland in your chest. And thymosins, which are the different peptides and different compounds that are being secreted by this gland, were discovered as far back as the mid 1960s. A dude named Alan Goldstein from the laboratory of Abraham White at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York. Dropped all those names there for you. They basically discovered them. Goldstein created another compound, thymosin alpha 1, for the purpose of increasing immune cell activity, and thymosin beta 4 to promote wound repair. So they're different thymosin peptides that are being secreted by the thymus gland. And use of TB500 or the thymosin beta 4 has dated back as far as 1974. A young girl became the first person to receive injections of thymosin because she was diagnosed as not having a functioning thymus gland. Thymosin TB500 has shown to have a lot of the same effects of growth hormone. Increased strength, increased endurance, a lot of different things. So this is the reason why it's been researched. And nowadays, over the last let's say 10 years, it's made a resurgence back. Now it is a research compound. Now it's being prescribed by some hormone replacement therapy clinics and some of these rejuvenation clinics, and it's quite almost miraculous little hormone that we're going to discuss more in depth.
So let's talk a little bit more about TB500, guys. So if you actually do some research on it, you'll see there's not much out there about it, and there's not much usage on it. And one of the reasons for that, a lot of guys haven't really heard of it or tried it, was that for years, Rick and I have been on the forums for a while, but for years it was very hard to find a legitimate peptide source. But now, if you go on evolution.org, we have at least 2-3 places that actually do source TB500 now, where you can actually find, legit TB500. So now we're actually able to use it. And I've used it several times, and I can definitely tell the difference between the real TB500 and some diluted crap TB500 that other people have used. So, the way TB500 works, it has the ability to upregulate cell bindings and proteins like actin. So the upregulation of the actin allows the TB500 to promote cell migration and proliferation. So this will help you build new blood vessel pathways and also regulate inflammation that has to do with wound healing. So it's a very versatile peptide, and it has a low molecular weight, and it lends to its mobility, ability to travel long distances through our tissues. So when targeting injured areas, TB500 is going to circulate the body and find those injuries around your body and take corrective action. So you'll notice on this stuff all kinds of things. Like you'll even notice you're able to be more mobile in the gym, more flexible. You'll notice less inflammations in your joints and your tendons. Like people who suffer from tendonitis, they notice a difference and stuff. They also notice maybe, some differences with their hair growth on their head. Some of their gray hairs on their head darkening back. So it has some anti-aging properties too. And then one of my things that I notice on the stuff after using it just a week or two, or even just a couple doses of it, you just using 2 milligrams, 4 milligrams, 6 milligrams, 10 milligrams only, getting it into my body over the course of a week and a half, is the endurance difference. Now, those of you who are just weight trainers, you may not notice that significantly, but if you're like me, you're very active, you do a lot of cardio, a lot of outdoor activities. I just took my cat for a walk and I climbed the fucking 40-foot tree with my cat. That's we do that together. Me and my cat. He's my buddy. He's my climbing buddy. So you climb a 40-foot tree, then you climb back down. That's a lot of endurance that you need. So I noticed on TB500, my endurance is a lot better when I'm doing stuff like that. It really turns you into quite a beast, So if you really know your workouts, you weight train, you're a power lifter, you really know your workouts to a T, you'll notice, wow, I can nail an extra rep on this stuff. So also, there's been some studies done which say that TB500 also can heal organs like the heart, and help with ventricular hypertrophy. So, this stuff has other benefits. That probably is why we notice the endurance benefits, because anything that's good for your heart and that benefits your heart is going to help you with endurance, because your heart rate, it's all about your heart rate, guys. You can strap a heart rate monitor to you, get an iWatch or get one of those heart rate straps and strap it to you, and you can start understanding how our heart rate works. Okay, study your body and see. It's like a car engine. The car engine spins. The faster it spins, the more that engine burns out. So if you can get your heart health better, then it's going to help you across the board, from the gym to cardio to mountain climbing to bicycling, anything. So this stuff is really cool stuff, and I really I like it. And so we're going to kind of get into dosages in a bit. You wanted to add something to that, Rick?
Yeah, just a couple of notes I had here for people to give to everybody. So like you were saying, TB500 is the synthetic version of the peptide hormone thymosin beta 4, which is a natural peptide found in the body that is produced by the thymus gland. This is a gland right in your chest. It's almost like between the upper lungs a little bit. The thymus gland is very active when you're young, but it becomes more inactive as you get older. By the time you hit 40, as much as 80% of the gland may be inactive. The thymus gland produces different thymosins, peptide hormones that are there to help your body repair. I've said it on the podcast before. All organisms have a built-in expiration clock. This is why the same animal cells that are in a bird, that are in a human, that are in a turtle look identical under a microscope, but they'll all age at different rates. Birds can live a couple years, humans can live a few decades, and turtles can live a few hundred years. We're all kind of I don't know if you want to say designed or evolved, but we're all kind of designed or evolved to die off at some point. And it's just part of evolution. Organisms need to die off to make room for the newer organisms. And so the thymus gland becoming inactive as you get older is just a natural part of evolution, a natural part of us becoming older and getting older, and organisms dying off so the new ones can have a chance at resources, right? So all of your cells in the body have the receptors for the thymosin beta 4 peptide. So once a cell is in need of repair and it receives thymosin beta 4 compound, or in this case TB500, it is going to repair itself. The genetic code that's inside of the nucleus that express the repair of the cell will become activated. Now, TB500 we know works just as well as thymosin beta 4, but they're not identical. Thymosin beta 4 has a 43 amino acid chain. And then over time, scientists experimented with slicing, splicing together maybe 17 and 23 of those amino acids, creating only a chain of 40 or different smaller chains. So if you were to really look at it under a microscope, TB500 is not exactly thymosin beta 4. They got small differences in the amounts of amino acid chains, but it still works. Still works just as good, just as great as thymosin beta 4 does. I guess you could say it's like comparing, saying testosterone that your body makes to maybe something like a dianabol or a masteron or another hormone that will still attach to those receptors and create a signal, but it is not a fully identical hormone. It is just close enough to attach there. So that's an important distinction to make as we continue to on the podcast. Thymosin beta 4 is the original natural hormone your thymus gland makes. The TB500 is a synthetic version that it's not twin of it. It's a synthetic variation with a little bit of a different amino acid chain sequence than the original.
All right, guys. So everyone wants to know, how do I use this stuff? So basically, when you order it, if you look up some of these sources, I can pull up our source on the forum, for example. One of our sources on the forum, they do sell it, and they sell it in 2 milligram vials, and they sell it in 5 milligram vials. So you're going to get it, and you're going to get it, and it's going to be in a vial, and it's going to be a powder, like a white powdery stuff. You're going to be like, what the hell is this? It looks like salt. Looks like kind of like salt powder or something. And basically what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to constitute it. I would store the peptides always, all your peptides, even before you constitute it. You should always store them in the refrigerator. That will keep them the maximum shelf life on them. So, but if you end up storing it, at room temperature, it's not the end of the world. It's not a big deal. But if you want to extend the life on it, definitely go with the fridge, especially if you're going to store it for a few months. And then I say after 6 months, 7 months, even in the fridge, it's going to lose its potency. So you want to make sure you use it within 6 months or 4 months. After you constitute it, you're going to use backwater or sterile water. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you use. As long as it's either backwater or sterile, you should be good to go. You're going to mix in that very, very carefully, and you're going to go ahead and inject it. Now, because it's only 2 milligrams or 5 milligrams per vial, you're just going to do the whole amount in one shot. So you don't have to worry about storing it. But hypothetically, let's say you were to get like a few vials of 5 milligrams and you wanted to just constitute it all at once, you could, and then just store it in the fridge. And then you want to use it as soon as possible. But in this case, for most of you, you're gonna constitute it, reconstitute it, and mix it, and then you're gonna just inject it anywhere, sub-Q, anywhere. You don't have to inject it at the injury, because it will travel. Like I told you guys, the way it acts in the body, the pathways, it will travel through your body, and it will pick out where injuries are to heal those injuries. So really the easiest place to inject it is just pull up your stomach fat and boom, into your stomach fat with a slim pin. Boom, you're good to go. The entire 2 milligrams or the entire 5 milligrams. And what you could do, you could run, 4 to 8 or 4 to 10 milligrams a week of this stuff. 2 or 3 times, split it up into 2 or 3 doses. So if you get 2 milligrams, for example, I would start out doing 3 times a week. You do 2 milligrams on Monday, 2 milligrams on Wednesday, 2 milligrams on Friday. Or if you get the 5 milligrams, do 5 milligrams on Monday and then 5 milligrams on Thursday or Friday. So twice a week. So that's how I would dose it. And then over time, you would lessen your dosage. So after like a couple months doing it that way, then you can go ahead and lower the dosage to once a week, and then once every 2 weeks, and then once a month, and then so on. So you keep lowering the dosage. So if you follow that protocol, you'll notice this stuff is really expensive. Because if you look up the prices, a vial of this stuff is going to run you anywhere from 30 to 60 bucks for a big 5 milligram. So if you're doing it twice a week, 5 milligrams, it's costing you 60 bucks per vial. That's 120 bucks a week that you're spending on this stuff. So yes, it will get expensive. But you know what? You've got to run this stuff at a strong dose to be effective. And you can maybe do it once a week if you do 5 milligrams and then just split your dose. So you would do, 2.5 milligrams on Monday, 2.5 milligrams. You do it that way. And that would cut the price of what you're spending on it in half. So that could work too. But if you really, really, really want to heal your injuries, you're sick of these injuries, you've spent thousands of dollars going to doctors. You don't want to use all these prescription drugs they give you. You don't want to spend money. I mean, if you go to physical therapy, they charge $90 an hour. I mean, it's absurd. If you get an MRI done, they cost you thousands of dollars. So if you really, really want to heal these injuries, guys, it's going to cost you some money. You want to put aside, a few $100 here. And it's going to cost you some cash. But this stuff does work good. Now, in addition to that, the protocol that I recommend, not just using TB500, you've got to also add in BPC 157. And BPC 157 is another peptide. It's a healing peptide. And it's also, quite pricey as well. And with the BPC is you want to inject that BPC into the injury. So you want to say that your elbow hurts, for example, or your knee hurts or something, you've got to inject it as close to that injury as possible with the BPC. So the TB500, anywhere in your body, but the BPC, you want to really inject it. So my recommendation is stacking the BPC with it. And we'll get into BPC maybe in another podcast. So maybe the next podcast we do a compound episode, we'll talk about BPC. But that is really what I recommend to heal injuries. And of course, you want to run your N2 Joint RX. It's a supplement that contains different supplements as well. Rick, you can kind of get into that. And then the last advice is you really have to ease off on whatever has caused these injuries. Because if you spend all this money on these peptides and then you keep hammering away at what made this injury happen in the first place, guess what? It's just going to come back. It's going to become a chronic injury. So you really have to ease up on whatever you're doing to cause these injuries. Very, very important that you take some rest and let the body repair. If you had done that correctly in the first place, you wouldn't have gotten to the point where you start getting these chronic nagging injuries.
Yeah, very important what Steve just mentioned. You have to take, if you're trying to repair muscle injury, you have to have proper proteins, essential amino acids in your system, in your diet. If you're repairing bone, tendons, ligaments, joints, skin, you have to have the proper nutrition, the proper building blocks for those things. This is the reason he mentioned N2 Joint RX. N2 Joint RX has vitamins, minerals to cover any deficiencies, and also has the building blocks that your body uses to actually build some of these white tissues, bone, tendons, ligaments, cartilage, all these things. You need the building blocks for them. At their best, steroids or these peptides like TB500, they will go to the cell. They will tell the cell to repair, to get stronger in the case of steroids. But they're just there to send the signal to the nucleus of the cell for gene expression. They're not there to build the cell up. Testosterone, when it hits your muscle cell, it doesn't become part of the cell now and make it stronger that way. No, it just gets there, signals for the nucleus of the cell to express the genes to build that muscle up thicker. Same thing with thymosin beta 4. It gets to the cell and it just signals, knocks on the door, sends a signal straight to the nucleus. The nucleus expresses the genes that are going to repair the cell. But you still need the amino acids, the minerals. You still need all of those things floating in your system in order for your cells to actually repair. So yeah, taking N2 Joint RX along with your TB500 is going to make sure that you have the substrate there, you have the building blocks there flowing through your system as the TB500 is making your cells repair. It's giving your cells a signal to repair. You want to make sure the building blocks are there. So that's very important. And just a little word on dosing. I did a little bit of research on some of the dosing protocols people are using. And it seems that if you use a little too much TB500, more than you need, your results just aren't as good as if you use the smaller, the medium amounts. It won't hurt you, meaning you could use quite a bit of TB500 and you won't get into the realm of being in danger from cancer or other problems, the way you tests have shown with certain SARMs and certain other compounds. But taking too much, then it seems as though your body won't respond to it as well, and you won't get a full healing effect. So you don't need to do too much with it. And even if you did, you're not going to get into cancer danger zones or anything like that. At least the studies and the literature that is out there about it now seem to point in that direction. What do you think, Steve?
From what I've read about TB500, they did think that it may have contributed to cancer. But the reason for that, if you actually look into those studies, is not because what you think. It's actually because um, ends up happening was the main action of the TB500 was to produce new white blood cells. So what they noticed is its presence in the affected areas that were that had cancer in the people's bodies. It was not the TB500 causing the cancer, but it was just that the TB500 caused those white blood cells to show up in the body where the cancer lived. And that's because it was helping the body mount an immune system response. So when they started looking more into it, they actually concluded that TB500 actually helps with cancer. It doesn't contribute to cancer. So that's good news. Another thing too is like I said at the beginning, a lot of people have not used TB500. So when you see that, these gurus that you see on forums or they write these articles, and they won't tell you this. They won't say, "Yeah, I've never used it." I mean, I've used it myself 3-4 times, and like I'm probably one of the more experienced people to have used it, and I've only used it 3-4 times. So a lot of these people they'll use it, and it's really something else, and we see that a lot. So they'll say things like, "Oh, it gave me a head rush," or "Oh, it gave me lethargy," or something like that, or it boosted my hunger, or any of this stuff. And it's like, dude, like if you had experience using peptides and you had experience using a lot of these compounds, you would know that if you take something like if you inject a peptide and you get hunger, you didn't inject TB500, you were injecting some type of GHRP or a GHRH. You know what I'm saying? So that's just a lack of experience by these guys. And it's just so funny, like reading when I see people, like we had a guy on the forum say, "Oh, I took SR9009 and I couldn't sleep all night." I'm like, dude, you didn't take SR9009. You were taking something else, probably clenbuterol or T3, and that was affecting your sleep. It had nothing to do with each other. So this is why you get these weird comments like on forums or on articles and stuff from guys. They just don't have the experience with enough compounds to really understand what they're taking. They don't know their bodies well enough. So we're doing this podcast, Rick and I, to help educate you on these compounds and to lead you in the right direction so you don't end up buying fake peptides and you don't end up like these guys who take these peptides and get these weird side effects because they weren't even using what they thought they were using. So yeah, that's why we're doing these podcasts, guys, to help educate you. And we're giving you the facts based on experience, not just based on what we read on some forum somewhere. So yeah, guys, definitely, if you have any questions about this stuff, definitely hit me up on the forum, Steve SMI. But yeah, this stuff at the end of the day, guys, I can tell you with me, stacking it with BP, when I ran it by itself, I definitely noticed a difference with endurance. My endurance was better. My recovery was better. And then when I would stack it with BPC, I would definitely notice a healing of injuries. It really, really made a difference with me. So if you want to spend that kind of money, on healing these injuries versus I can, versus going to a massage therapist or physical therapist or getting a bunch of, things done from a doctor, an MRI, and all this stuff that they want you to do where you're spending tens of thousands of dollars. It makes more sense just to spend a few hundred and see, how these peptides can work with you. And that would be a thing for you to do. So, this is a way, guys. This is a different way to, everyone wants to know what they can take, Rick. Everyone wants to know, what can I take to do this? What can I take to do that? But TB500 could be something for you to take that can help you with endurance, with your energy levels, with injuries, with joints, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's worth a shot. It's definitely worth a shot. I tried it. It's just a matter of, the money issue. For me, I would love to use this stuff more, but it's an economic thing. The stuff is very expensive. So, Rick, I'll let you
And
finish up.
one word on injuries, and said it before. It's just a good time to repeat it. If you got something that needs to be set back into place, if you have something that needs a physical doctor specialist to come in there and readjust things, there are different parts of your body, from your feet to your hands to your neck, that sometimes just need to be adjusted properly. Then after everything is in its place, once all the tendons are running down the right lanes, once the bones and everything is set properly, then something like TB500 will help to really heal all those tissues around it and make it tight. But if you have something that needs specialist care to be set back into place, to be cut open, restitched, and oh man, I seen that video of that guy with the pec tear. You get a muscle tear and things need to be attached back to the bone and things like that, then it won't do anything to repair that. You've got to go under the knife. You've got to have stuff sewn back together. And once everything is in the right place where it needs to be, then the TB500, Osterin, all of these other healing compounds will help that injury and everything there heal properly. But if you need something reset back into place, if you need something stitched back into place, you got to go to have a human physically do that first before you stack these compounds on there. And that's something really, really important to note.
Yeah. So, that pretty much sums it up. So, Rick, tell us a little bit about stacking TB500, BPC, and what else you would stack with it. Give us an example of you, because you've been going through an overuse injury. You're looking at all that, what's it called? The only porn website? What's it called? Only Twitter? Whatever. You have an overuse injury to your elbow.
TB500, BPC, Osterin, and N2 Joint RX. So N2 Joint RX, my product from our website, you go to joint, JOINT, RX.com. It'll shoot you right to a place where you can buy it. Nice, big, heavy bottle. You get 5 big tablets per day in the product. And it has really the substrate. It has the building blocks that you need for all of that connective tissue. It's even got coral calcium, glucosamine, chondroitin. I mean, it's got what you need. And then you use, obviously, the peptides and the SARM, the Osterin, to just help your cells all over your body get that right signal to actually begin repairs. And then the N2 Joint RX provides the building blocks to repair with. What you're really kind of doing, really, if you think about it honestly, you're basically fighting age in a way, because you're putting into your body hormones and compounds that are no longer there in high concentrations because you're getting older, to actually tell your cells to heal injuries at a rate that maybe you would have as a really, really young man. You'd have healed these injuries at that rate. But since you're getting older, and we all have a built-in timer for when things start to go bad, then you are actually, that thymus gland that's no longer producing high amounts of thymosin peptides, you're just adding the thymosin peptides. Fuck the gland, right? And that's basically what we're doing with some of these peptides and SARMs, really, is adding in way more, even more than your body could make when you were a young man, really healthy, of these compounds that are signaling the cells to repair well beyond the years that evolution or our maker, whatever you believe in out there, destined for us to actually for the cells to repair. So it's a great compound. As far as me, I was going to use it. I might still, but I found I had this tennis elbow situation, lasted about 5 months. I consulted a lot of smart people on what to do, and I finally figured it out. It was a tendonitis, a tendon that runs all the way from the back of your shoulder down to through your tricep. That tendon got really tight, got really bothered there, and once that tendon started to get tighter and tighter, and I didn't take care of it, I didn't get it massaged. I couldn't even tell it was doing anything. Then it manifested as pain right at the elbow, all the way down to my wrist. I mean, I couldn't even hold a big mug of water in my hand about 3 months ago. And it really wasn't an overuse injury in my case. I changed after so many years. After I've been lifting weights since I was 13, now 40. I don't know, about a year and a half ago, I decided to change the way that I hold the bar when I bench press. I always benched with my elbows tucked in, the way somebody going to a benching competition would, because that's the guy who taught me how to bench, competed in powerlifting and benching competitions. So he just taught me from the very start to tuck my elbows in. And while that gives me a nice strong bench, it doesn't really build up the chest the way you want it for bodybuilding. So I don't know, after about a year and change ago, I started flaring my elbows out like a bodybuilder. And I think that's what started doing it. That's what started the injury. Because I do remember a couple of times after getting off the bench feeling my upper back a little bit tight. And I did some stretching, obviously, started stretching and thought that was the issue. But I think that's what started setting off the problem. And then it just became just full-blown tendonitis, tennis elbow. And the way it kind of finally got fixed is I finally hit upon a old man. He's like in his 70s, really knows his shit. And he touched around and he said, your problem is right here at the tricep. And he massaged the tricep, applied hot cream on it, went through about 4 different sessions with him, and my arm started to feel better. And then my gym put the heavy bag back out, and I started hitting the heavy bag again. And just the stretching motion from throwing my right hand, which is where the injury was, throwing my right hand out there, it started to loosen up all those tendons, loosen up everything back there. And I'd say I'm about 95% recovered now from my tennis elbow injury. And I am going to obviously use TB500 here in the near future, just to really kind of short things up, and to make sure that now that I'm healed from this injury, that it'll continue to stay well. But I know I got to go back to my elbows tucked in benching technique, and really never stop hitting the heavy bag. That used to be my warm-ups, hitting the heavy bag. And my gym changed things around because of COVID. They shut the showers down, shut off the area where you can go hit the bag, and just not stretching my arms out violently the way you do when you're sitting there hitting the bag really contributed to the arm getting tighter and tighter over time, and more atrophied, more tendonitis. It's just not, it contributed to a problem, is cascading effect. So I'm feeling much better now, though, thank God. And all it took was just figuring out the problem was not the elbow, because I had put CBD cream on my elbow, tried DECA run, did some exercises that a physical therapist suggested with a hard rubber ball right on the area on the elbow that hurts, and stretching the wrist. And also went to a kinesiologist, tugged on my arm pretty hard, and just tried a bunch of different things. And I was just concentrating on the elbow. The problem was way further up the lines of the tricep the whole time. And I didn't feel anything wrong with the tricep. And it wasn't until I started addressing the tricep, massaging the tricep, applying cream to the tricep, putting a massage gun on the tricep, that things loosened up and everything felt way better. And that's just something I went through. So hopefully can help anybody out there, because tennis elbow, it can become like very like chronic, where you just keep having problems with it. Buddy of mine's told me he had this chronic tennis elbow situation for almost 10 years. 10 fucking years he lived with just a constant pain in his arm. Just something, hopefully, will help guys out there.
All right, guys. So hope you guys learned a lot from this podcast. For Stevesmi and the Rickster, we'll talk to you guys next one. Have a good one.
Have a good one, Steve. Have a good one, guys.
Guys, this is the required legal disclaimer. We are only sharing our experience from years of steroid use. We are not doctors, and none of what we say should be regarded as medical advice. Always check with your doctor before taking any drugs or starting any training program.